Jealousy doesn't always slap you in the face with a hateful look or a harsh criticism. It doesn't arrive with a bitter voice or aggressive behavior that you can easily identify and brush off. No. Jealousy is more subtle than that. It enters your life like an old acquaintance, like a familiar friend who knows how to read the room, sitting beside you with a smile friendly enough to lower your guard. It doesn't speak loudly, doesn't shout that it's bothered by your success. It just sighs gently when you share something good. It chuckles and says, "Oh, looking sharp these days," as if joking. But you feel something off in the eyes. Jealousy is a master of disguise. It never introduces itself as, "I'm uncomfortable with your progress." It pretends to care, pretends to be friendly, pretends to make harmless jokes, and that pretense is what makes you confused, makes you question your own feelings. You talk about a dream, it nods, but then casually drops. Here comes another one trying to be a millionaire. The words sound light, there's laughter too, but inside you feel yourself shrink a little. You wear an outfit that makes you feel more confident than usual. It looks at you and laughs. Wow, celebrity now, huh? It's not a compliment, it's a judgment. A reminder that you're stepping out of the image they're used to, and that unsettles them. They don't want you to be worse, they just don't want you to be better. Jealousy doesn't destroy you openly. It eats away at you from the inside. A soft comment, a sideways glance, a compliment with a but. You begin to feel the need to hold yourself back a little so no one feels uncomfortable. You throw in a joke to ease the tension. You humble yourself even though you know you've achieved something to be proud of. And then you start laughing along with the jokes that slowly kill your confidence. You think you're keeping the peace, being modest, but in reality, you're dimming your own light, just so others don't feel small. Jealousy doesn't come with violence. It comes with familiarity. That's what makes it dangerous. Because when the enemy is clear, you can avoid it. But when the negativity comes from someone who once called you a good friend, it's harder to accept. And it knows that. Jealousy always hides behind the mask of a relationship. It knows you'll hesitate to react. You won't want to make it a big deal. You'll convince yourself maybe they didn't mean anything by it. And so you let it slide. Until every time you succeed, you feel the need to hide. Every time you progress, you feel guilty. Every time you're happy, you scan the room to see if your joy is making someone uncomfortable. That's when jealousy has won. Not because it's stronger than you, but because you've limited yourself to make it feel at ease. Let me be clear. You are not wrong for feeling uneasy after a joke. You are not oversensitive for noticing the insincerity behind a compliment. You're just recognizing a truth, that not everyone is happy for you, and some people, even while smiling brightly, are still trying to shrink you just enough to make themselves feel better. That's the unconscious strategy of those who aren't ready to grow with you. They don't want you to fall, they just want you to stay put. Don't go too far, don't be too different, don't shine too bright, because when you shine, they're forced to confront their own darkness. And that makes them uncomfortable. Jealousy never speaks directly. It circles, it whispers, it jokes. And when you catch on and dare to confront it, it immediately strikes back. "Oh, come on, you're overthinking." No, you're not overthinking. You're finally becoming aware of an energy that has been subtly and consistently draining your confidence. And that awareness is the first step to no longer being controlled by it. Jealousy disguised as friendship is an effective camouflage, but only when you allow it to blind you. Once you see clearly, you'll realize those jokes aren't harmless. They have a purpose. And that purpose isn't to make you laugh, it's to make you doubt yourself. If you don't let them succeed in that, you've already won half the battle. The other half? Keep growing. Don't apologize for your light. Don't lower your standards just because someone feels uneasy. And remember, a real friend will never feel threatened by your progress. They'll celebrate it. They'll cheer. As for the others, let their silence say everything. When someone makes a joke about you, your dreams, or what you're pursuing, don't be too quick to laugh along. Don't brush it off thinking they must be joking, because sometimes what's labeled as a joke isn't harmless at all. It's a test, a probing strike, a light cut that, if you're not careful, will grow into a deeper wound over time. These vague jokes often show up right when you're on the rise, when you're changing, evolving, becoming different in a positive way. Not everyone is happy about that, and not everyone has the courage to say outright that your progress makes them uncomfortable. Instead, they wrap their real feelings in a comment that seems harmless. Something like, "Oh, becoming a CEO now, huh?" Or, "Why go learn new skills? Just for some fake Facebook posts?" It sounds like a joke, sounds friendly, sounds close, but hidden inside is a message you need to hear clearly. You're being tested to see if you'll keep going or shrink back just to make them feel safe. Let me tell you, those jokes aren't just words. They are signals. Signs that you're doing something that's throwing others off balance, and instead of adjusting themselves to learn, they choose to pull you back to the familiar zone where they don't feel left behind. When you talk about starting a business, they laugh. Selling a few trinkets and calling it entrepreneurship, huh? When you share that you've started working out, they say, "How many days will that last?" The words may sound light, the tone still playful, but if you pay attention, you'll notice the energy doesn't support you. It doesn't inspire. It doesn't encourage. It mocks. It belittles. And its only goal is to see whether you're strong enough to keep going or if you'll hesitate out of fear of being judged. The truth is, those jokes aren't random punches, they're tactics. Strategies used by those who don't want to see you go further. Because if you succeed, you become a mirror reflecting everything they haven't done, haven't dared to try, haven't persisted with. And they don't want to face that feeling. They want you to stay in place. Same level, same starting line, same comfort zone. If you step out, you disrupt that structure. You make them feel left behind. They won't say it out loud. They'll just toss out a few jokes, a few laughs, a few glances tinged with surprise, and then step back and observe, watching if you get flustered, if you adjust your behavior, if you shrink yourself so things can feel more comfortable for them. If you do, they win. They don't have to change. They don't have to feel ashamed. They don't have to ask themselves, "Why couldn't I do what you did?" You need to recognize that when people use laughter to say what they can't say directly, you don't have to respond with fake laughter. You don't have to pretend you didn't hear the message beneath the words. You can stay silent. You can keep doing your work without explaining yourself. And most importantly, you don't need to apologize for changing, for improving, for daring to step outside your old self. The people who truly support you won't make jokes about your dreams. They'll ask, "How can I help?" They'll say, "How far have you gotten?" They'll stand beside you, not to test you, but to push you forward. I know sometimes those jokes come from someone you love, someone who stood by you in your early days, someone who shared your... And let me make this very clear. If you let others decide what's appropriate for you, you'll live your entire life within limits they set. You don't have to tear anyone down. You just have to stop shrinking. Every time you choose growth, someone won't be happy. That's the right sign. Not everyone who leaves is a loss. Sometimes it's liberation. So next time someone says, "You've changed," don't feel guilty. Ask yourself, am I changing in the right direction? If the answer is yes, keep going. You weren't born to shrink to make others comfortable. You were born to grow. And no one has the right to set a ceiling on your potential except you. If you want to know who truly stands by you, look at them when you succeed. Not when you're exhausted, not when you're in tears, but when you rise. Because someone who genuinely cares your capability, it measures your relationships. When you have nothing, you're approachable, easy to grasp, easy to predict, and everyone can love you. But when you grow beyond your old framework, when you start thinking bigger, dreaming further, doing more, some will begin to find you hard to understand. They no longer have a grip on you, and when they can't control you, they withdraw, or worse, they try to pull you back. I'm telling you, those who are sincere don't wait for you to stumble to show up. They walk beside you even when the light is shining on you. They don't stand in the shadows hoping you lose your way. They stand in the light beside you, building a brighter path together. They don't need you to shrink for them to feel worthy, nor do they see your victory as an indictment of their failure. They see you win, and they smile. genuinely, not out of politeness, but out of pride. If you have someone like that, hold on to them tightly. If you don't feel sorry, because you don't need 10 people pretending to care when you're down. You just need one who truly respects you when you're winning. Anyone can act kind when you're weak. It makes them feel superior. But few can remain kind when you're strong, because that takes real maturity and self-confidence. There's a type of person who's present only when you need help, but disappears when you stand on your own. Because when you no longer need them, they lose their role, their power, the sense of savior they tied to their kindness. That's not kindness. That's control dressed up in emotion. But someone who truly cares, they rejoice when you no longer need them, because it means you've grown, and they know their place isn't tied to what you need, but to who you want beside you. That's where the difference lies. The one who needs you to be weak to stay around, they don't love you. The one who stays when you're strong, that's the one to keep. I'm not saying doubt every word of praise. I'm saying watch their real reactions. Some compliments are spoken aloud, but the eyes can't lie. Some smiles make no sound, but still give you chills. Feelings don't fake well, and you need to trust your intuition. I've had people vanish every time I achieved something. When I needed advice, they were eager. When I needed motivation, they shared. But when I passed a threshold and started reaping rewards, they fell silent. No messages, no calls, no congratulations. And then I understood. They didn't love me, they loved the feeling of leading. When I stopped being the student, they stopped staying. And I wasn't angry, I just stopped holding on. In the end, the ones who clap when you win are the truest mirrors, because no one forces them to do that, no one expects them to share your joy, but they choose to because they love you more than their own ego. And that is rare. Find them, keep them, be them. And if no one claps for you, then you must learn to clap for yourself, because the first and final validation must always come from within. And once you're strong enough to applaud yourself, you'll no longer need the crowd to prove your worth. You'll only need the truth. And the truth is, those who truly care aren't just there when you lose. They're there applauding when you win. When you begin to rise, they don't see you as a mirror to learn from. They see you as an accusation. Your advancement is not just an achievement in their eyes, it's a silent warning that they've been stagnant for too long. So instead of asking how you did it, they ask, who gave you the right to do that? Not because you're wrong, but because you dared to do something they never had the courage to even begin. I'm telling you, people often find it easier to sympathize with failure than with success. Failure feels safe, because everyone has stumbled. But success, especially when you rise from the same starting point, makes them uncomfortable. Not because they don't want you to be better, but because they don't know how to explain their own inaction when you've broken through the familiar boundaries. So don't be surprised when you receive silence instead of congratulation. Don't be shocked when someone who once supported you suddenly starts belittling you after a clear breakthrough. There's nothing personal about it. It's a defense mechanism because your growth unintentionally highlights everything they've been avoiding, postponing, or too lazy to face. They don't see you succeeding. They only see themselves falling behind. And here's the part I want you to understand. They're not necessarily bad people. They're just not ready. When you change, you create a shockwave in your environment. You start speaking differently, thinking differently, living differently. You say no to meaningless conversations, to aimless meetups, to habits that pull you down, and that makes them feel left behind. But in reality, you didn't leave anyone behind. You just stopped sacrificing yourself to accommodate the stagnation around you. You step up, and they start to feel forced to choose. Either move forward with you or stand still and watch. But no one wants to admit they're just standing still. So they choose a third option. They pull you down through doubt, through sarcastic remarks disguised as jokes, through spreading judgments like, she's so arrogant now, she made it and forgot where she came from. They're not resisting you. They're resisting the feeling that they should be doing something but aren't. And I'm telling you, don't shrink because of that. Don't make yourself small to fit the old version of you they're comfortable with. You weren't born to be a replica for others' comfort. You were born to grow. And growth always comes with sacrifice. You will lose some people, but what you gain is yourself, in a stronger, wiser, and less manipulable version. There will be a phase when you feel very lonely. When you go faster, higher, further, the number of people who understand you will shrink. But don't mistake fewer people for the wrong path. Not everyone has the courage to escape the loop. And not everyone is kind enough to watch someone else do it without feeling pain. You just need to be clear-headed enough to recognize you are not the problem. Your progress is not an insult. You are under no obligation to shrink yourself to make someone else feel at ease. On the contrary, if someone truly cares about you, they'll see your growth as a source of inspiration. They'll ask, "How did you do it? I want that too." That's the reaction of a mature and brave person. As for those who choose envy, silence, distortion, that's their choice, and you cannot sacrifice your path for someone else's choices. I once heard a very real saying, "The brighter you shine, the more uncomfortable you make those hiding in the dark." It's true, but light doesn't ask for permission to shine. It exists to illuminate, and so do you. Your progress, whether they accept it or not, is the result of effort, discipline, and personal commitment. No one gave it to you. You worked for it. You refused to compromise. You took responsibility. So you owe no one an apology for moving forward. And if someone sees your growth as a thorn in their eye, that's the clearest signal they never truly supported you. You don't need to fight them, you just need to keep rising. Because when you are high enough, solid enough, and clear enough, those who doubted will fall silent, and those who truly belong on your journey, they'll find a way to catch up. Not through envy, but through effort. Not through judgment, but through action. When you start growing, don't expect everyone to stay. Some people will turn their backs on you. Not because you're wrong, not because you've changed for the worse, but because your very growth makes them feel lost, no longer in control of you like before. You no longer fit the old role, the easygoing one, the one who always says yes, who always gives in to keep them comfortable. You begin to stand on your own, set your own boundaries, define your own worth, and that makes them feel insecure. They don't hate you, they just hate the feeling of no longer being the center of your life. Let me be clear. Growth is a purifying act. It naturally filters out those who only accepted your old self. When you level up, not everyone is willing to level up with you. They once supported you, as long as you didn't step out of the comfort zone they set. But once you break that boundary, they begin to avoid you, speak indirectly, make sarcastic remarks like, "You're doing too much," or "You're not who you used to be." And they're right. You're not who you used to be. You're moving forward, and they choose to stay behind. I've seen too many people confused when those once close suddenly grow cold. They try to hold on, to fix things, to make everything feel the same again. But you must understand this. Growth doesn't need permission. You can't pause just to keep peace with those no longer aligned with your new journey. If someone turns away just because you're living up to your potential, then they've already turned away from themselves long ago. The story isn't about who left you. The story is who stays when you're no longer easy to please. Who stays when you start saying no? Who stays when you no longer bend over backwards to keep others comfortable? Because when you grow, you stop living to maintain relationships. You start living to maintain the truth. And the truth is, not every relationship is worth protecting if it demands you to shrink yourself. You might have once been easily controlled by guilt, but at some point you'll learn